Hi there. Today we're going to use Specode to build a peptide telemedicine platform. What I've gone ahead and done is I've already shared a few prompts, and my goal via this video is going to be to walk you through how we built this platform prompt by prompt. So to get started, we wanted to type in exactly what was needed, add as many details as we could in an initial brief prompt without getting into too much information right off the bat that might confuse the agent. So what I've gone ahead here and done is I've said, I'm a physician starting a cash pay peptide therapy practice. I want to build a telemedicine platform for it. I'm not technical. So things like this really help the agent understand the audience. That in turn helps it ask you the right questions. So we say, I'm not technical. Patients do it all online. They fill out an intake, review and prescribe, etc., etc. Once we type in this prompt, Specode will automatically start planning for the telemedicine platform. And the first agent, the planning agent, goes into work mode. As the planning agent is doing its tasks, you'll notice that there's a few questions. Is it a solo or multi-provider platform? And is it going to be an async or live consult? Depending on what is relevant for you, please go ahead and answer these. What I have done here is I've said multi-provider and I have said live consultation. All right, next step. So once we have these answers, Specode's planning agent continues to plan the application, and then it will follow up with a few questions. We're talking about, is there a pre-visit intake? And is there a booking confirmation and the schedule management and how that essentially happens? For example, here it's asking if there is a single admin managing all providers or if individual providers just manage their own availability. I've gone ahead and answered some of these. Please note that it's okay not to have all the answers off the bat. If you are still figuring this part out, feel free to say, I'm not sure yet. Use default settings. So we go ahead and say yes. Planning agent goes into work mode again. What's really cool is that while the planning agent is at work, it keeps informing you as to what's going on and what's done. For example, it says it's using the scheduling planning component and all of these different things that keep happening in the background. Now, once a planning agent is done, there is a chance that it will ask you more questions to continue building out your product, or it will go directly into the next agent. So in this case, it went ahead and asked questions. For example, it asks if the clinic had one central admin, or if there was a provider that was managing their own availability. And then it also asks more questions about the intake sections. For example, what questions do the patients need to fill out before they visit? I've gone ahead and answered these. I've said single central admin, and then I said demographics, medical history, current meds, supplements, all this information, because I wanted all this information before the consult, so I have some background on the patient. Once we share this information, the planning agent gets to work again. Please know, if you would just like to go into design pretty much right off the bat, you could just say this and then start it off with, I would like to go into design, and the Specode agent will do exactly that. So you can see it keeps updating you as to what's happening. Now, it looks like the planning agent has more questions because we want to get more specific. And so these focus on the payment model and the pharmacy routing. I have gone ahead and answered that. I've said the patients pay flat consults per booking. It could be really anything that works for you and your setup. I've also said that these are tied to the patient's record and sent to a 503A compounding pharmacy. Once I've shared this information with the agent, the work continues to happen. And there's a few more questions. For example, video, right? Do you want the built-in video, or are you fine with an external tool like Doxy or Zoom where the provider would just share an appointment time? Pharmacy integration for MVP. And the reason all these questions are super important is because I want to talk to you about how much detail the agent goes into at the planning stage so that there's less hurdles when we're actually implementing all of this with the third agent. So the recommendation would be to take some more time at the planning stage, try to get all this information as quickly as possible and feed it to the planning agent, and then move on to the next agent, which is design. Also, if you would need some support, you could just have the agent pick sensible defaults. So there is a point in the end where the agent says, if you'd rather, I pick sensible defaults on any of these and just draft the roadmap, so say so. So I did say, please pick sensible defaults. I also added a few additional points that were important to me. I talked about how intake should save a time-stamped exportable record. I said that there should be an auto-risk flagging for the intake forms. I also mentioned that nothing should auto-approve. A clinician should review, write the rationale, approve or decline, all of these things. I'm not going to go over this entire list, but you get the point. Any specifics that you want to, please feed them to the planning agent, and it just helps making sure nothing breaks later on. All right, moving on. So once I've fed this information, the planning agent gets to work again, and it looks like planning is finally finished. What's really cool here is that before we move on to the next agent, which is going to be a design agent, there's going to be a complete summary going over your vision, your personas, all of that. So let's go over that, right? Peptide MD, this is just the name Specode gave it. If you have a name or a domain in mind already, feel free to use that. Let Specode know. We have a vision here, so it would be a great idea to view this vision, see if this kind of aligns with the direction you're going in. It does not have to be perfect, but it's a good idea to make sure that you're at least heading in the right direction. In terms of personas, what we have right now for this case is patient, provider, admin. Make sure that that's correct for your case. If you want to add or remove things, just feel free to let Specode know. One of the things that we're focusing on, of course, is the intake for the case of this demo video. And so that's what sort of prompt focuses on too. And it'll tell you what are the different roles, what are the different screens we're focusing on, landing page, authorization, multi-step intake funnel, etc. One thing to keep in mind is that the first build slice, which is going to be built right off the bat, is something that will have one role just because that's how we've prompted the agents to focus on. But if you would like for different elements, different roles to be focused on, you could just let the planning agent know. All right, so we obviously did not go ahead with Stripe or bookings or external video links because we wanted for the video to be hosted within the platform. But that is not the case for you. You can just let the agent know. If you want to use Stripe, we have those integrations set up as well, and then you could just let the agent know. All right, we will keep going. There is a build later list. If there's anything from this build later list and you think you want to move up to the build now list, please go ahead and let the agent know, and that will happen. In addition, the agent also lets you know what are defaults that were applied, such as emergency contact, risk flag visibility, booking window, etc. And once you've reviewed all of this information, please take your time with it. You could either hit approve, or you could just prompt it with the few changes you need. What is going to be very helpful as you build along with Specode is kind of structuring your responses. So if you want to make changes to different elements of this message, let's say you want to change the build now or the build later or the defaults, right? It's a good idea to type it out, build later changes, and then you put in your bullet points or default thing. So that will just allow for the agent to function a little bit more efficient. Alrighty, now that we've approved this current thing, we are going to move on to design, and the planning agent is going to, or the design agent is just going to do just that. Before we go into design, the agent asks you for some visual references. So it's a great idea to have those at hand. You could either drop screenshots directly from websites that you consider are the goalpost, or you could just give it a high-level idea of what you would like. For example, it's given me some options: Function Health, Hims and Hers, Carbon Health, Headspace, Whoop, all of these things. If you don't have anything in mind, I think it's a good idea to go to these recommendations and check them out and see if there's any of these that you resonate with. You could drop in links, and names, screenshots, whatever works. Another question I can ask you is the tone of the website. So you get to choose from a few options. And lastly, it's going to ask you what the website should look like. And if you have something in mind, for example, if you don't want it clunky, you could say that. So I'd send use a calm and headspace type vibe. I'd like for it to be calm and credible, and I would like for it not to be clunky. Once we give it that information, the design agent is going to get back to work, and it might follow up with some more questions, right? So feel free to into specifics, or if you would like for some of these to just be left to default, you could let the Specode agent know as well. Now, if you see there's very specific questions, so how should the 7-step form pace patients through sensitive questions like medical history and contradiction screening. So you have a few options, right? You want one section per screen, or you want one question per screen, or if you want long scrollable sections. So having one section per screen for this case is my preference, so that's what we'll select. But if you have a different vibe, then that's totally fine. Specode also gives you recommendations based off of your responses here, so you're free to use those as well. Again, it's going to ask you different questions. You have the option to let the agent pick all three, and then if you want it to be easy, just say go, which is what I did. But if there's anything specific that you think you really want to execute it design-wise, it's a good idea to tell the agent exactly that. Once we hit go, the design agent gets back to work, and then after the design agent is finished, you're going to get update letting you know that that's happened. And we'll have another more detailed review, which now also captures the design. So just make sure you go through it. It'll talk about the typography, it'll talk about the intake funnel design, polymers, components, all of this stuff. Make sure that you review this in depth. Take your time with it. The agent is not going anywhere. So if you need to research what some of these font types, colors look like, feel free to do so. Leave the screen, go into Google, plot, whatever you use. And please make sure that this is in accordance with what the vision that you did have in mind. If you like it, then you could just hit approve, which is what I did. Or if you would like some adjustments, just let the agent know in a structured way, and it will get on to design again, and then we'll be done with the design after that update. In this case, now that we've approved the design, we're going into our last and final agent, which is actually going to build the application. It will give you a brief of exactly everything it's going to build. For example, in our case, we're focusing on the landing page, a 7-step intake funnel, post-intake status screen. It'll tell you why this is the first slice. So it's basically the front door. And so just make sure everything you have on there is what you need on your front door for your peptide marketplace. There's a few things that it mentions that they're deferred, that'll come later. And so just make sure you review them. And if you need some of these added right off the bat in the first slice, that is totally fine. Just let the agent. In this case, I just said to build it. And so we're now going to go into the actual and final agent, which is the implementation agent. This one usually takes the most amount of time. And so once it's here, go grab yourself a cup of coffee, take a quick break, and then come back. If there's any issues with the code, agent will detect those itself, and it will fix those issues. So you'll see the implementation agent is fixing some linked issues. Let me continue it. And keep happening. And once all of that is done, you will see that the implementation finished notification is right there. It'll tell you what's been built and what's been shipped, and it will give you access to the actual platform, which is exactly what we're looking at right here. Now, we're going to hit deploy new version. Every time you make an update to the agent, let's say you type out, I'd like this change, you just have to see the deploy. It's happening right now, but I'll show you that once this is done updating. You have the chance to deploy it each time and open this up in another screen. To be able to access this as a patient, you will have these credentials that are shared with you, and you could use them to go over the platform. So before I log in, I want to show you what this looks like. If there's any specific changes you want, whether that's in your copy or design, just let the agent. So here's what that looks like. Short and brief, because for the sake of the demo, we wanted to make sure that it's the case. Is a version that you can click on, which is going to open in a new screen. So this is what it'll look like. And as you scroll, you could now basically just log in and experience the app yourself. So we are going to log in with the credentials that Specode has shared with us. And go from there. There you go. So once you log in, you are going to see that we have an intake form. We did decide to keep them together. So we are getting exactly that. And you could choose some of these things. All right, let's just put it in here. You could say this, and then you just continue filling out form. Right. And yeah, you can just essentially keep on finishing this. I'm going to continue this just for the sake of time for this demo. If you want some of these questions answered, for example, all these have to be answered our requirement. And so it is something you can do for all of the answers if you need to make sure that every single question on your intake form is answered. And then you just hit continue. All right, continue. This is the informed consent. And then just make sure you're at the bottom, and then you just say, and you just hit submit intake. Now, this is what the patient is going to see. Remember, the first slide is focused on the patient. And so this is what you're looking at. We are going to go back to the original screen. And anytime that you are ready to publish your app, once you're done making all the changes, you can just hit publish and our team will get together with you to make sure everything looks good, all guardrails are in place, and we are ready to go. I just like to close off by mentioning that once you're done building this initial first slice and you continue building into the other ones, make sure that your requests are structured, and as much as possible, try to include them right at the top in the planning agent so that when you close this out, you have fuller, more compact website or a platform that has all the features that you really need. As always, the team is here to answer any questions, but hopefully that was helpful. Good luck with building your product.